Joining us right now to talk about what's going on in Mexico and the tariffs and everything else that's happening in our ports is Gene Seroka. He is the Port of Los Angeles Executive Director.
Would you take
to you?
Would you take it? Ni hao, ni wei shou zhongguo wa ma?
Wow.
See, that would have been smart.
See, that was valuable.
That would help. I worked in China for about 4 years.
Damn.
Still rely on those guys a lot, as we've talked about before.
See, talk to a kid.
Okay, so explain, what is your expectation as it relates to tariffs, just broadly? I mean, you've been watching this whole thing play out. You're at the literal epicenter of it all. What do you think is really at stake, and what do you think could happen, will happen?
Good morning, Andrew. Great to be back with you guys on the set. I think what I've learned is there's a long way from the campaign trail to public policy.
Right.
And while we're not dismissing anything, I think industry, the workforce, and ports like ours want to know where and when, so we can begin to plan and adjust. We're doing all kinds of simulations trying to figure out, okay, if cargo ships here, if it goes there, what do we do? How do we respond? Let's get a little bit of line of sight on what's going to happen from a policy standpoint, and then we go to work.
Right, but everybody doesn't know what the line of sight is.
That's the question.
And there's a secondary issue, which is it's not just what's the line of sight, it's when do you even learn what the line of sight is. How quickly will it take you to rethink plans if, in fact, you get that line of sight?
We're going to have to pivot quick, and we already have some experience in this. When the first round of tariffs went in back in 2018, we saw a movement away from China sourcing manufacturing in Southeast Asia, right, Vietnam, et cetera. We closed out 2022 with about 57% of our portfolio being trade with China. Today, it's 43%. And if we put more tariffs on China, we'll see that percentage go down as well. But again, how quickly can it happen? Some experts are saying by summertime, by third quarter, maybe fourth quarter. And what the key is going to be is our speed component. That's how we've done so well with North Asia cargo coming over Los Angeles and distributing across the country. If we have nonstop services like we've seen over the past couple of years start up in Southeast Asia, we can maintain our competitiveness.
Okay, so anecdotally, we hear that there are some companies that are trying to get ahead of this situation and that they're trying to ship as much stuff over here as humanly possible now in an effort to get ahead of a potential tariff. Do you actually see that physically?
Yeah, we do.
You do?
Yeah, we do. The volume has been elevated. This will be the second best year on record at the Port of Los Angeles from a volume perspective.
But how much do you think of that is just a function of hopefully a great economy versus folks sort of trying to overthink? I don't know if they're overthinking, but as it relates specifically to the tariff piece.
The underlying economy is strong and has been continuing longer than some would have thought. We're still buying. The manufacturing sector is doing pretty well overall. Then you've got three big geopolitical issues. Right. The dock workers negotiation back here on the East and Gulf Coast, which is set for expiry on Jan 15th.
Oh, boy.
You got the drought conditions in the Panama, which seems to have settled down, but you weren't having as many ships go through, nor were they loaded to capacity. And the ongoing security concerns with the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. Suez Canal crossings are down 80 to 90%. Now, in the last quarter plus, you've seen retailers, footwear, clothiers front-loading inventories to average that cost down in the event we see a widespread tariff implementation, whether it's 10% on all $3 trillion of American imports or more targeted, like 60% on China, impacts on Mexico and Canada trade. That's it, and it's a repeat of what we saw in 2018.
What do you think the chances, by the way, on the East Coast that we have a strike?
I think it's pretty tough. It comes down to the discussion between the union and the employers on robotics or automation, and it's the most polarizing discussion we have in our industry today.
Can you do it? I would think that the future has to be robotics, no?
If we don't leave the workforce behind. There are models like in Hamburg, Germany, which have flourished. You grow capacity, top-line revenue, margin play, and you don't cut back the workforce to big-time levels.
Right.
If we can find a way to double capacity, which is what robotics can do, but not cut the workforce by 50, 80% at that individual facility, I think you got a conversation starting right there.
Right, but here's the question. Could you do this without the people? With a meaningful cut in the people, or no?
In my opinion, no, because you've got communities, you've got policymakers and politicians who have jumped on this discussion point, making sure that their communities are healthy from an economic standpoint.
By the way, I want the community to be healthy. No, I'm just asking from a pure, just technical perspective. You know, if Elon Musk was building a port would the port have people? How many less people would be in that port?
From what we've seen so far, we've seen terminals automate, cut 80% of the workforce on that facility. And the results have been mixed on the West Coast thus far. Now, you can work longer hours, your cost per unit of throughput becomes a little cheaper, but the level of service, because we're a gateway, going from ship to truck to train, is a little bit intricate. That institutional knowledge, I don't think can ever be put to the side.
Thank you for coming in this morning. It's great to see you. Happy holidays.
Good to see you guys.
I mean, they have so much leverage, I think. And we heard last time, I can shut the country. He can.
Remember you said that, right?
He can shut the country down. Because you go into a place that if any of the shelves are bare, it's like, well, what's happening? This is not. I mean, we take so much for granted. It comes off the ship, onto the truck, into the rail. Yeah. So January 15th, and they're not going to go quietly.
I don't think so. No. I think they're pretty far apart. And while we got that tentative agreement back in the fourth quarter, this automation concept is really going to come down.
Yeah, it's existential.
That's the biggest thing.
All right. Thank you.